Welcome to Watersports World, and if you're seriously into powerboating, then the next hour is especially for you. Starting offshore in the spectacular waters of the Norwegian fjords. Then it's inshore and an update on S2000 as the race hots up for a place in the first ever Powerboat Super League World Championship. But first, it's time for our second visit of the year to Norway. It's the World 2-litre Offshore Championship, and this was the action. I know we've said it many times before on Watersports World, but there is no finer backdrop to any sporting occasion than the magnificent waters of the Norwegian fjords. And Norway, of course, has played a major part in the 1994 international sports calendar. The Winter Olympics at Lillehammer started the ball rolling, followed by Norway's involvement in the World Cup and the Class 1 Powerboat Grand Prix at Arendal. However, an event which received very little publicity yet claimed world status was the World 2-litre Offshore Powerboat Championship, staged at Tvedestrand, population 5,000, and a town in the south of the country, 90 kilometres from Kristiansand. The majority of the 28 entries represented the three Nordic countries, Sweden, Finland and Norway, and included many of the sport's top names such as Michael Frode, winner of 200 Grand Prix and one of the favourites. Italy's challenge was headed by Barone Armando in an Argentinian hotboat, and he too would start the championship amongst the front runners. One of the local favourites was Harold Halvorsen, who along with brother Tor had spent the winter months preparing this impressive catamaran as their challenge. But first they would all have to get past this man, Morten Skanke, with co-driver Bjorn Muller, were the 90, 91 and 92 Norwegian champions, and in the flat conditions expected were considered top seas. Well, they were soon making the point in Heat 1 as C71 took an early lead at the end of lap 1. Closely followed by C78, Swindon's Jari Pekkanen in the hydrolift. While Mikael Frode hung on to third in the new 25-foot monohull of his own design. Another new design of monohull, Oki Manifeld's bat boat, also threatened briefly. And after a pretty slow start, Ronnie Johnson's rapid hydrolift was at last beginning to pick up the pace, although at times it looked a little precarious. But the main story of Heat 1 concerned the Italians. This move took them into second and then on into the lead, where they stayed until the final lap. Skanke and Moller, however, in the very quick Argo stayed close on their heels, and less than 13 minutes covered the first 23. In sixth position, 1 minute 30 off the pace, was Michael Soderlund. 20th was Norwegian Bjorn Vassmar, 11 minutes and 8 seconds off the lead. Now behind him, Mika Nininen, C69 in the Argo, was also struggling. But 11 places ahead, Dag Rudström was back in the points at 10th. Also in the points at 11 was Lage Jonsberg with an impressive run in the Phantom. And 12th was Mikael Hamren in the aging Lust Cat. While right at the back and about to be lapped, C6, Paul Nykop and brother Carl from Finland in the Castrol Cat. But no one was going to catch Skanke and Moller. They romped home, but it emerged it was courtesy of a little local knowledge.
We had really a good race this day, and at the last lap we take a shortcut, and we beat the Italians for 200-300 meters, and they couldn't take it back. So we was the first.
I'm very pleased we came fourth. I'm not sure whether it was fourth or fifth place, but it's two more races, and it doesn't used to be as flat as it was today.
Well, the scoreboard then after one round showing how important that last lap was for the Swedes. The Italians, though, would be happy with second. These championships are rarely won with 3 victories. The consistent Swedes, Pekkanen and Soderman, also with a platform to build on. Well, it was calm seas and a scorching sun once again on the menu as the fleet lined up for Heat 2 over the same course on Thursday. Surprisingly few had dropped out in spite of Tuesday's blistering pace. Most of them knew that nothing short of a top 5 finish would do if they were to be considered as serious contenders going into Saturday's final round. Speeds quickly built up to around 80 miles per hour, and once more it was clear that, as on Tuesday, points would be hard to come by. The race leader initially was C68, a hotshot monohull crewed by Mikael Soderlund and Per Jonsson. Although the Swedes must have been painfully aware that C31 Jokinen and Karjosa, C71 Skanke and Moller, and C5 Staff and Eriksson were literally breathing down their necks. However, it was a performance of merit from the monohull in sea conditions specifically designed for the catamaran. But gradually as the pace increased, the little grey craft had little left and Skanke swept through. And there was more to follow as Jokinen and then Staff lined up for the kill. Well, as they turned for home at the end of lap 1, it was first heat winners Skanke and Moller who led by 20 seconds. But such was the competition that less than 5 minutes separated the next 13. And once again, it was the Italians who were making the news. Another poor start left them with plenty to do. But from a lowly 10th, this was now 6th. And 4th and 5th ahead of them were getting closer. In that leading pack, C78 Pekkanen, 3rd in the first heat, had been joined by C66 Olofsson, who was 15th. However, this was another steady performance from the Swede in the radical hydrolift, and a podium place was looking distinctly possible. Meanwhile, the plucky Soderlund in the monohull hadn't given up, and in spite of repeated attacks, had somehow managed to stay in 3rd. But a serious problem loomed. By lap 2, the Italians were flying, and little short of a barrage, it seemed, would stand in their way. Soderlund was first to fall, quickly followed by Olofsson. The question now was, would Skanke be next? Well, the answer was certainly no initially. Going into the final lap, Skanke looked comfortable enough in front, although his advantage had now dwindled to 25 seconds. And Baroni, creeping up behind, was looking ominously confident. Behind, though, Olofsson had finally got away from Soderlund. who in turn had also fallen victim to another late charge from Pekkanen. And behind Pekkanen, the first serious challenge in the championship from Jens Odegaard, C9, and another of the rapid hydrolift cats. Halvorsen, C14, moved up to 8th, although was soon to drop back with more mechanical problems. There was a great battle for 9th and 10th between Nicholas Tiblin in the monohull and Ronnie Johnson in the yellow cat. Although Tiblin led here, he later succumbed to the hydrolift's greater speed. And for Vidar Runes, he'd succumbed altogether, 18th in the first heat, and now a retirement. No such problems for the high-flying Norwegians though. They'd beaten off the Italian challenge, and despite Moller's apparent eagerness to get back on dry land, they would go into the final round in pole position. Olsen, C66, was third over the line behind the Italians, maintaining their improved form, and this was the winner, working out what he still had to do.
200 points isn't much because the Italian was the second on Thursday and today too, so it's if he wins on Saturday we have to be at least number 3, so there's a long way to go.
Well, with Skanke then well aware that anything less than third in the final heat may not be good enough, it's time for us to take a check on the scores. First, the second heat. That was a repeat of the first, apart from that hard-fought third from Olsen, giving him an outside chance on the podium. And overall, this point-scoring system means that although Skanke's 2 victories have yielded 800 points, a fourth in the final heat would only bring 169, and should the Italians win, he would lose. Well, all that action coming up, plus a dire battle for the final places in the World Super League finals, after the break.